That's all. Okay, this is called the SQP2RS. So it's just an acronym for survey, question, predict, here's the two R's, read, respond, and summarize. These things are all done before you read to kind of get your brain ready to learn the new information. So you want to pull out all that stuff you already know about a topic, because the new information can then attach to that topic and it has a place to be stored in your brain so that you can remember what you read and you can also learn from what you read, if that makes sense. So we're going to kind of go through this together. I did it before, I did it earlier today, but I want me to kind of help you walk through these steps before we read, and then as we keep working together over time, I'm going to kind of just let you start taking over some of that yourself. Okay, so this is a passage about, it's called garbage. So one of the things readers do is they will look at the title, and then they're going to look at all of those first sentences, or sometimes there's headings, right? So you have your title, and then sometimes you have headings and subheadings, and you're going to just take notice of the things that you think it might be about, okay? So why don't you go ahead really quickly and just read the title and then the first sentence of each of these. And while you're doing that, I want you to just make note of the things you're reading that you think you might be reading about over here in this box.
Survey.
Mm-hmm. So if you were just kind of thinking about an overall view of what things kind of struck you or stood out to you as you read those first sentences?
That they're all about actual trash, and they mention ways that they take care of trash, like landfills and burning the trash.
Okay, so that's kind of what you would record here. So ways to take care of trash, you were kind of putting those ideas together. What kinds of ways do you think you might be reading about?
Landfills and burning the trash.
Okay. So I would add that.
To just the first one?
Yep. There were landfills and burning trash, and then there were two others. Do you remember seeing any others in there?
Oh, new materials like recycling.
Recycling, and then there was another one.
Space increases, like.
Yes, composting, right?
Okay.
Have you ever heard of composting?
This is where they put it like one spot and they just like melt, like put it together into like a tight little box, and then just.
It sounds like you got some background knowledge about that. Composting is kind of like where they take things like banana peels and like leftover food and the things that can basically turn back into soil. They take those and they put them in a big pile, and then they mix them up, and eventually they all decompose.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two other ways we think we might be reading about, because those are two are those vocabulary words that came up while you were previewing. Recycling and composting. Okay, so then the next thing you'd want to do is you'd want to think about some questions you have that might be answered while you're reading. And this kind of sets the purpose for reading that article. So do you have any things you're wondering that might be answered while reading?
No, not really. I don't really have any.
Okay, I'm going to give you some maybe some ideas that might help you think of some questions. I wrote, why don't we recycle more? That was a question I had. Because I know that some people recycle, but not all people recycle. So I'm wondering if this article is going to tell me, like, what is it about recycling that, why don't we do it more often if it's so helpful to our environment? Do you have anything you're wondering about like landfilling, composting, burning?
I mean, we just did like a science of the week on this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. What was one of the questions? I think it was like, why was a landfill like the worst choice to dispose trash?
I think that's a really good one, Ring. If it's just building up trash, why do we use it? That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Is